I did a poll yesterday asking my audience who is the most cringe contemporary right-wing philosopher, in which an overwhelming majority picked Dr. Jordan Peterson. But I bet if I were to conduct such a poll 2 or even 4 years ago, barely 5% of them would pick him, because old Jordan Peterson is simply different from the new, or whatever this is. I remember him as an intellectual giant who knows how to handle himself around those who disagree with him on both the far right and the left. Hell, there have been even videos of people trying to learn charisma from him. I simply don't remember him as a person who lashes out at supposed troll demons.
The biggest problem that I can see is that the large online platforms allow anonymous troll demons to rampage through society with no cost to themselves. And I can identify these people quite accurately now. This will make a number of the people who are watching and listening uncomfortable because they'll be in the list of people who do this sort of thing. So the first thing is they have an anonymous name. The second thing is the anonymous name usually has something psychologically significant about it in a very negative direction. So it's self-denigrating, or it's demonic, or it's otherwise offensive, and purposefully so. And then the people who are utter cowards, likely to be narcissists and Machiavellians, resentful people sitting in their basement at home, dwelling on their misery and doing everything they can to spew toxicity out into the world. Alone in their bedrooms, they're just isolated people who aren't causing any trouble. But as soon as they multiply themselves millions of times using this incredible, powerful computer technology, they're not even human anymore. In my estimation, they're literally a demonic force.
And don't get me wrong, I also get harassed by the troll demons he's talking about almost on a daily basis. For instance, currently there is a neo-Nazi attack on my channel, and some of my videos are now private, but you could still watch them on Odyssey, and even though I am higher than average on neuroticism, it seems like I deal with it much better than Jordan Peterson does. I don't freak out and demand censorship whenever someone mistreats me or says something I disagree with, because I understand that what I perceive as a troll demon is a freedom fighter to the next person. Hell, I'm sure people will consider this tweet that he tweeted to be a tweet that is reminiscent to what a troll demon would tweet. And I'm sure that if you ask a leftist or a neo-Nazi, they'll say that I'm basically the worst person on the internet. But that aside for a moment, if you notice, people started talking about his mental health way earlier than that. And now it's popular to say that he was basically groomed into being this way by the Daily Wire crew, but these signs were always there. On an intuitive level, when I made my previous video critique of him, I kinda knew that his return will completely change him. This new Jordan Peterson persona I unfortunately cannot relate to at all. Now, he doesn't speak truth to power. His tone and posturing has changed drastically. When he did his lectures, he didn't talk to people top down and with a demeaning voice, and I really enjoyed his lectures and interviews, even though I disagreed with some of it, and in my previous video about him I let you know with what I disagree with. But now he's gotten even worse. And I'm sure it's not just the editing that makes him seem out this way, because the videos that he produces on his own are basically no different from the ones on the Daily Wire. Unfortunately, I see the same egocentrism that makes me roll my eyes over. For instance, his video addressed to the ex-CEO of Twitter is reminiscent of a mafia boss threatening his business partners. The tone, the posturing, the expensive clothing, and the usage of words just makes me wanna cringe. Especially considering the context behind it is basically Jordan Peterson refusing to be reinstated on the account on the condition that he has to agree in private that his tweet
violated the Twitter rules.
And although I do have some respect for him doing that, and it also reminds me of what he got famous in the first place, I feel like this thing in particular is a nothing burger. I've been suspended from Twitter twice for even dumber reasons, and besides, I feel that this is just basically an ego trip for him and not something done in favor of free speech, because if that was the case, then he'd surely be worried about EA's Twitter suspension and would not advocate for censoring anonymous accounts. But I feel like it's always been an ego trip from the start. Once he got power and fame, he became not as concerned about freedom of speech when it applied to those who he disagreed with. He still likes the idea in principle, but just like Elon Musk's audience, as soon as those principles require an application to the person they don't like, well, those principles evaporate. Similar thing has happened to Gab, by the way. But let's explore this logic of not allowing anonymous accounts for a moment. Let's think about the people who are forced to be anonymous online. Who do you have in mind? For instance, a large amount of biorealists online consists of anonymous academics as opposed to troll demons. To quote an article from Unheard summarizing this situation, the equation of anonymity on the internet with deviance, mischief, and hate has become a central plank in the global war on so-called misinformation. But for many of us, anonymity has allowed us to pursue our passion for scholarly research in a way that is simply impossible within the censorious confines of modern academia. And so, in these hidden places, professional geneticists, bioarchaeologists, and physical anthropologists have created a network of counter-research. A young man entering full-time research interested in warfare, conflict, and the origins of different peoples, how borders and boundaries have changed throughout time, grand narratives of conquest or expansion, would find himself stymied at every turn and be regarded with great suspicion, if of course he didn't embrace the current ideology, which is demonstrably false. And why does it happen? The article suggests that because our culture is leftist, and here's the perfect example of that. The answer of a culturally built AI GPT to questions from the political compass test. They are not just left of center, they are far left. That is to say, centrist people are basically leftists, and whatever the definition of a troll demon would be, it would surely not be a right-wing definition. And guess what? For a person who talks a lot about cancel culture and how we will see who will cancel who, it should probably be obvious that there absolutely is no cancel culture when the person you're canceling is anonymous. You can't freeze their bank accounts, you can't fire them from their job if they aren't left-wing enough, but if we were actually to go ahead with this prescription, you would. Here is the thing, progress or a conversation or whatever you have on your mind is driven by a very few number of people. No matter what the niche we're talking about, whether it be science, social status, YouTube, there is simply an unequal distribution of competence. Twitter fired most of their employees and the site got only better. A majority of people don't matter when it comes to efficiency. Unless of course you're not living in Soviet Union or North Korea where people basically are needed to mass produce potatoes and T-34s. Quality matters, and if I'm able to find a gem inside a sack of coal, then so be it. So I say it's better to allow free speech for everyone, even though if most people who are using it are the so-called troll demons, which is, by the way, is demonstrably false. Because people with antisocial personalities represent a fraction of the demographic, and sure they might get amplified on Twitter, but I am absolutely fine with them violating TOS and getting banned without disclosing their real identity. If, in addition to them, we had real academics and people like Jordan Peterson from 2018 speaking truth to power. You might not know this one, but one of his favorite authors, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, didn't use his own name in his first publication. Accusing these people of cowardice, when you know that the establishment and the culture are set against them and are willing to be very coercive, it's like talking down to slaves and demanding them to speak up to their masters, demanding the abolition of slavery. And of course, ideally, that should have been the case of how things went, but only a few people are able to take it to that level. Unfortunately, the academics aren't Django Unchained. They are at best Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and in reality something like, oh, I'm not going to protest the war, I don't want to be put in jail for 15 years. That's what they are. And although this particular topic has pushed me to make this video in the first place, he's been living not according to his 24 rules for life prescription for years. Especially he was failing on losing his mind part, and although I agree that partially this has to do with his drug addiction, he doesn't make it clear on Twitter. He doesn't style himself as a person with mental issues, he styles himself as a thought leader that is almost perfect, a person who we could learn from because he's a great giver of wisdom who lashes out on things that I laugh about when they're said to me. That's definitely not how thought leaders behave. I guess the main lesson for today is from the Bible, and it's that you should not make yourself an idol. Everyone is fallible, and I think on the example of Jordan Peterson or Andrew Tate, you could conclude that power and fame does indeed corrupt. When people are put on a pedestal, we sort of forget that they are vulnerable humans just like everybody else, and then we are suddenly surprised that whenever they post cringe or freak out on public. And although high status is given for a reason, and I think that Jordan Peterson has clearly earned his place on the social hierarchy, you cannot deny that it corrupts people, makes them less prone to self-reflection if the person challenging them is of a much lower social status than they are. Why should I listen to an incel who is typing from his mom's basement or whatever? It's sad, but it's true. I somewhat talk about it in the video about the right and psychopathy in general that you should definitely check out after this one. Anyhow, that's all I wanted to say. I know it's been a low IQ rant video, but at the end of the day it's my channel and I could do it what I want, just like a woman could do with her body what she wants. So I will likely release 2 more videos this month that aren't exactly about politics before I return to my usual style of videos. So to quote Jordan Peterson, better get used to it, bucko.
Chapter 8. Wash your penis. In some pussy is the place to be. Always fucking is the life. For me, spread them legs, open far and wide. Fuck this shit. Just let me put my dick inside.